A Pup Named Scooby-Doo was the product of something of a panic, in my opinion. The thing that came before it, the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, which honestly is one of my all-time favorites, even if I know that it doesn't hold a single candle to the first two seasons of Where Are You? It's still better than the bulk of the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show, because we come back to full episodes, and the monsters are real again. We had Red Shirt Shaggy, we brought back Daphne. It was just a really good time with Vincent Price. It was just a very good time. And then we have A Pup Named Scooby-Doo that comes out, and for the first time in like 20 some odd years, the animation completely changed. Suddenly things were a little bit more animated. The slapstick was more Looney Tunestic, and the character drawings and the character models of all the NPCs and the villains of the week and all that stuff started to look a little bit more like the first generation of Hanna-Barbera cartoons, such as the Flintstones, the Jetsons, the Yogi Bear. That era, those people that worked in those art departments, they would come on to influence this show in ways that it needed to be influenced, and the team that would be working on this first season would go on to make some of the best stuff of the 90s, the Tiny Toons, and the Animaniacs, the Pinky and the Brain. They would go on to make some really good stuff, and they started from here, this middle branching point of The Pup Named Scooby-Doo, this complete overhaul, yet enhancement of all of the characters in perfectly good ways. Scooby and Shaggy are the same. Fred becomes this paranoid conspiracy theorist guy who blames Red Herring for everything except for the things that Red Herring is actually at fault for doing. In that case, you would blame someone else because he's gotta be right. And at least it's not at his expense, it's more an endearing character trait. And that's the difference I feel with Fred in this show versus Velma. Right? Fred in Velma. No. This, though, good direction. It's a good direction. He's the butt of a lot of jokes, but it's not at the expense of the character. It's just an endearing character trait. You love him all the same. And then Daphne's fantastic. She's got a Valley Girl personality to this point, so to speak. She's rich still. She's got bad butlers galore. She's got Jenkins in season 2 through 4. She's fantastic. She's got the Scooby snacks in her purse. She bribes Scooby to do anything she wants when she gets the Scooby snacks. It's fantastic. She also is the resident skeptic in this show. Velma would adopt that personality trait in Mystery Incorporated, as far as I know. In this, though, it's Daphne who's the resident skeptic. Daphne's the resident skeptic. She's a fashionista. She doesn't want to get dirty. She doesn't want to get any clothes wrinkled and all that stuff, to the chagrin of everybody else. It's very funny. She's excellent in the show. But the best character, the MVP, the Velma that Velma should have been, Pup Named Scooby-Doo's Velma, is, in my opinion, the best version of Velma ever. This Velma is socially withdrawn. She doesn't speak much, but when she speaks, there's this way that the writers wrote this character. There's this way that the animators animated this character. There's a way that the voice actress voiced this character. There's just this way that everything that came together culminated into the perfect depiction of Velma in such a way that when she speaks, which is not often, but when she speaks, you pay attention. When she says Jinkies, everybody turns to the screen because Velma said Jinkies. It must be a clue. So you pay attention to her. And when she explains the cluey-clueness, and you're paying attention, you're following along, it's engaging you, it's pulling you into the narrative, and you're actually interested in trying to figure out who the monster is at the end. You've got your own suspects, they have got their own suspects. Fred thinks it's Red Herring, Fred's wrong. It's fantastic. Velma is the perfect incarnation, and she's also adorable in this show. The little dotty dot when she walks, it's perfect. The huge glasses is just perfect, man. Everything about this character in this show is perfect. And even though it's primarily about Scooby and Shaggy, which I do believe it should primarily remain, even if you go into the spin-off with Velma, I think they should still be a major focus in the show. You do not make a Scooby-Doo IP without the dog! A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, the first season is 13 episodes. Season 2 would be 8 episodes. Season 3, I believe, would be about 3 or 4 episodes. Season 4 would also be about 3 or 4 episodes. Seasons 2 and 3 would be released over the course of about a year and a half, and then the first 2 seasons would be about 2 years. And it's the first 2 seasons are the strong points, but I would argue that the seasons 3 and 4 were also very, 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 very worth watching. But there's a team that came together with season 1 that would go on to make the other stuff of the 90s after season 1, which means that they would not be there for seasons 2 through 3, which means things changed a little bit and the confidence of the show dropped, but there was one mainstay, and a man called Mr. Iwao Takamoto, I think that's his name, Mr. Iwao Takamoto, or Takamoto Iwao, depending on where you are. If I got my facts right, it is that man who is responsible for this dog. Not in the show, but the IP, the start. It's that man who is responsible for this dog. And he is the creative designer department head in the art department for this show. So he's a mainstay of the whole show, which is a good solid start, with a good solidness, right? The animation in this, as I said probably in a previous take, this is the second take, the animation harkens back to the first era of Hanna-Barbera, being the Flintstones, Jetsons, and Yogi Bear era in particular. There are animations, there are character model designs in the Yogi Bear show, which feel like they're being reused in this show, but they're reused in loving ways, in more of a tribute way, and not of a rip-off way of saving money, though it might be a little bit of both. That's how this Hanna-Barbera works. Hanna-Barbera often feels like the hammer and canon of animation. If you can do it cheap, you do it right. And they make a lot of stuff. They throw a bunch of stuff at the screen, and if one of them sticks, it pays for 10 other IPs that fail. That's what Hanna-Barbera tends to be. There is so much Hanna-Barbera out there. There is a Hanna-Barbera maelstrom of rabbit holes. There's so much stuff. Crossover, Speed Buggy, Josie and the Pussycats, Jabberjaw, Genie the Genie, and there's so much stuff out there. There's way too much stuff out there. It's Scooby-Doo that was the one that hit, though. Out of everything that they threw at the screen, this was the one that hit. And I know this is a rambling video. I'm rambling on this show, so I may not stay on topic with ramble videos. But I'm going to try to stay on topic. The animation is not consistent with the previous 20 years of Scooby-Doo, and I believe that was on purpose, because they felt that Scooby-Doo needed a revival, so as to say. With the cancellation of the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, coming into the late 80s, the Scooby-Doo IP was still strong. There were plenty of reruns on television. A lot of people were still watching it. The Where Are You was still highly beloved. And it's like, what can we do to bring back that Where Are You type of thing, but in a more redefined era? Well, there was a certain thing going on at the time where there was this baby-fication of all the major IPs, the Muppet Babies, the Tiny Toons, and all that stuff, right? So, they did it to Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Dooby-Doo. They have a prequel set in the Coolsville when everybody's a little bit younger and Scooby-Doo is a pup named Scooby-Doo. And you get to visit Coolsville, you get to visit the parents of all the kids, and it's just really good world building. Shaggy's father is a cop. Daphne's parents are super hyper rich people. Velma's father looks like Mr. Spacely, but with the brown hair and a little bit kinder, and big brown glasses, and it's just a delightful lovingly crafted world that they built here. And there's a lot of zany animations. There's a lot of fourth wall breakages. There's a bunch of times where there would be a news segment on TV and the characters are watching this news segment. The news anchor is talking about the monster and stuff like that. And then when the news anchor says in one of these episodes that he's done for the night, he's about to shut off the camera. So Shaggy goes to turn off the dial, and then the news anchor reaches out for the TV and slaps Shaggy's hand away and says, "Stop! We just have a new this just in." And he starts speaking of the new thing the monster did, and it's just really charming. The self-aware jokes are really charming in ways that engage the audience rather than throw you off. There's this running trope here that you help solve the crime. And that's the way that they designed the show. Velma, they center it around Velma, the one solving all the clues and formulating the conclusions and building the suspects list. So you're with Velma trying to build that suspects list and trying to figure out who the guy is at the end. It's just a belovedly well-crafted way that they did this show, that it feels unlike anything that had come before. What's New Scooby-Doo would feel the most like Where Are You? In essence, in design, in animation, it would feel the most like Where Are You? But for a post-90s audience, the What's New is what I grew on. You know, I started with the Where Are You reruns. I would start with the Scooby-Doo reruns, the Pup Named Scooby-Doo reruns, and then Zombie Island comes out and it's like, whoa, man, things are a little bit different now. And then the Witches Ghost, then What's New would come out, and Simple Plan singing it. It's like, man, this is for that hardcore post-90s crowd. But this was that in-betweener. This is the in-betweener. This is in between old Scooby-Doo and new Scooby-Doo. This is that bridge, that middle area, that and it's also the odd one out animation-wise. Much like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy-Doo get a crew, and that mid-2010 show that I have no idea about. I just know it exists, and I don't care for it. The Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue, I am okay with. I saw a handful of episodes. I'm just not the biggest fan. When the gang is splintered, my interest kind of gets splintered as well. But what brought it back after the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo crap that I wasn't really interested in, primarily because there's no Fred, Daphne, and Velma, there was just Scrappy-Doo getting Shaggy and Scooby into trouble, which got old after about a handful of episodes. When they brought Daphne back for the 13 Ghosts, when they brought in new characters like Flim Flam and the Grift, Flim Flam and the Grift and the Cons, he's excellent. I actually really loved Flim Flam in the 13 Ghosts. He was one of my favorite characters. Vincent Vaughn Ghoul, voiced by the legendary Vincent Price, was also equally excellent. The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo should have been something that would have gone on for at least 3 seasons. It should have been something that got plenty of screen time, plenty of airtime. It should have been that show that revived the series, but it just couldn't do it. It just couldn't revive it in a way. Even though they brought Daphne back for 13 Ghosts, it just didn't feel like old school Scooby-Doo, which is what they did with the Pup Named Scooby-Doo. They brought Fred and Velma back, and they aged everyone down, and it felt like it was Scooby-Doo again, and yet it was also new and zany and wacky and cool. A Pup Named Scooby-Doo is that show that got me thinking about it when this Velma stuff started to come out. The new Velma show that perhaps you've heard of it, perhaps everybody's been crapping all over it on both sides of the wall. I'm gonna try to be neutral here. I'm not gonna be mean, though I might inevitably end up being mean. I don't know. I'm gonna try to be nice. I'm gonna try to be neutral here. Just say that the Velma show feels like a misfire. It is certainly the most distant in terms of concept from every single other incarnation of Scooby-Doo since the dawn of Where Are You? So for the first time in over 50 years, we have a show that just didn't feel like Scooby-Doo. In fact, Scooby-Doo, the titular character that has been the focus of this franchise for half a century, was missing. And I feel like that was the biggest blow. One of the biggest blows for this show that just set it up to fail before it even started. And they catered it towards adults. And to be honest with you, I would be all for that. Catering a Scooby-Doo show towards adults would have been perfect, because the Scooby-Doo fans are adults now anyways. That's what James Gunn wanted to do with the early 2000s live-action Scooby-Doo movies, but then the studio pushed him down to PG, and there's still some adult jokes in those movies. And it was for an audience who had spent 30 years with this IP. A lot of people coming in to watch Scooby-Doo, the live action, would be fans of those old stuff, and a lot of adults would be coming in to capture it. But the studio wanted the biggest possible audience. They wanted to bring in the kids, so PG. So I can get behind an adult-oriented Scooby-Doo show. I really could. And I think if you did it right, it would be perfect. But this show didn't do it right. They got rid of Scooby-Doo, the titular character, to begin with. That was the number one crime. So they get rid of Scooby-Doo, and they focus it on Velma. And right away, before anybody gets mad, or before blah 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 blah, I agree that I really would love a concept spin-off where Velma is the titular character. But I think that Scooby should still be a primary focus in his own IP. So even if you would shift the focus, because, Pup Named Scooby-Doo focuses it primarily on Shaggy. Shaggy's narrating it, after all. So I feel like if you were to do a show focusing on Velma, instead of having Shaggy narrate the show, a show that's like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, and instead of having it be from Shaggy's point of view, you have it from Velma's point of view. Let's spend time in Velma's house. Let's see Velma's room and her laboratory and all her doohickeys that she plays with, and her machines and all the bits and bots and dudes and beeps and boops and all that stuff. Let's see a little bit about her and her family and her parents. And then have Scooby-Doo come over and Shaggy-Doo come over, and then the family, the Velma, the Daphnes and the Freddys and the gang still together. You haven't changed that. You haven't shifted anybody. You haven't darkened any pigmentations. You just kept everybody the way they were. You just shifted the protagonist from Shaggy's point of view to Velma's point of view. And I feel like if you did something like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, which basically means change the animation just a little bit, jazz it up a little bit, make it adult-oriented, change the character point of view from Shaggy to Velma. And we focus it on Velma, but we still keep Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo's still the heart and soul of this franchise. You cannot make a Scooby-Doo IP without the dog! And I think it could have worked. But the show, it failed from the start. They got rid of the dog, you got rid of the IP, you got rid of the heart and soul of the franchise, which means you just have a show with 4 characters that share the names of a franchise that people have spent 50 years, who've been alive for over 50 years, and most people who've spent since their childhoods watching the show, when they see this, and they say, this is not what I grew up with, this is not what I watched, this is not Scooby-Doo. This is Velma, but this is not Velma either. This is not Velma. This is not Daphne. This is not Freddy. This is not Shaggy. This is not the show. If you changed these characters' names, changed their outfits a little bit, and you changed it from Velma to Spooky Central at Horror High, it would be fine. Nobody would give a crap. Because it's not Scooby-Doo that the show is completely changing, keel-hauling, butchering in a way that feels insulting to the franchise. And the reason why you're looking at A Pup Named Scooby-Doo in the middle of that rant about Velma is because this is an example of a keel-hauling change, an overhauling change done right. The animation is completely different from 20 years of consistent animation, and yet they kept the core of the main cast intact. They kept the personalities of the main cast intact. They just enhanced characters that needed it, like Fred, Daphne, and Velma. They enhanced those characters. They gave them backgrounds. They gave them families. They gave you the place where they lived. They gave you the houses. They gave you Daphne's butlers. They gave you a whole overhaul to the show, but they kept the soul intact. And that is an example that Velma needs to learn from. The show Velma needs to learn from A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. A Pup Named Scooby-Doo is still a Scooby-Doo show at heart. Clearly. What is Velma? Either way, watch A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. It's a friggin' amazing show.